Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto was taken by Yoda and trained to become a Jedi Knight. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. Destined IV, 3 days later. For weeks the battle for destined had raged on down at the surface. With the droid factories destroyed and their mining operations coming to an end, the Jedi and the Republic were sure that victory was in their grasp. Only, it wasn't going to be an easy one. For 2.5 days, Jedi Master Deepa had laid siege to the Separatist headquarters. It was the only stronghold left that offered a sizable amount of resistance. It also held the Master's signal to shut down all droids on the planet. But even with the shield around their headquarters taken down, the Confederacy was still managing to hold strong against the Republic forces. All forces, full retreat. Deepa ordered as she covered the retreat of the 29th Legion, as droid forces steadily began to overwhelm them. She too fell back with the clones not long after to avoid being riddled with blaster fire. Once they had retreated, the droids halted their advance and pulled back to their defensive positions. It had been like that since they had laid siege to the HQ. It seemed that the droid forces, overnight, sudden seemed to be fighting on par with the clones, luring them into multiple traps and masterful delay tactics to either halt her advance or force her to withdraw each engagement. The 108th Corps was in tatters from just these last 2 days, having lost about 1/5 of its troops. "General, we're starting to run out of supplies. I just had about 100 men tell me they're on their last mag. How in the hell are we going to take that blasted HQ?" Marshal Commander Dragon began to voice his doubts. Even after ordering his troopers to cannibalize what ammo and equipment they could from their dead comrades, they were still running dry. He wasn't questioning General Balaba's leadership or judgment, but he needed to know what the plan was in order to better use what little resources they had left. Deepa sighed as she looked at the holomap of the area surrounding the HQ, which was located at the top of a tall hill. There are only 2 approaches to the HQ. The first is the direct one, offering flat lands and a clear sight towards the HQ. She pointed as Dragon hummed. "And also one hell of a killzone from what we have experienced." Dragon commented as Deepa nodded before pointing to a second approach. The second approach is from the rear. It provides heavy cover and might be easier to attack from, but that would mean that our forces would have to travel several miles out of the way to avoid being detected. We do not have the time nor resources to go all the way around. Not to mention that we do not have any information of the area. Honestly, we should have tried such an attack earlier. We've lost our opportunity. She explained as everyone looked at the holomap grimly. Their choices were limited, and they had already suffered heavy casualties just from trying to push through the main route. Our communications are also being jammed. We've lost contact with the others and even the fleet above. Our supplies have also stopped coming. I fear that Master Naruto might have failed. He could be dead. Or worse, captured. General Phi Torana suggested a grim fate for her general. As a former instructor at the Jedi Temple, she had been quite impressed with Naruto's many accomplishments during the early stages of the war. It was hard for her to believe that Naruto could have failed at a task. But this war had already taken the lives of hundreds of Jedi, and regardless of the story surrounding him, Naruto was just one more Jedi Knight that could be added to the casualty list at any time. Whatever the case may be, we need to take that HQ. Our supplies might be cut, and our communications might be jammed, but we still have orders to take that HQ. We're the 10th Army, victory against all odds is what we are known for. Deepa spoke, trying to uplift their spirits. While the war was still young, the battles that the 10th Army fought had all been victories. The Fonder, they managed to save the shipyards and the sinking Venator. The Corellia, they repelled a significant Separatist assault. Many times they found themselves outnumbered by the enemy, even on destined the case was no different. "Then, I guess we better take that HQ, hell or high water, before General Uzumaki arrives," Dragon stated with confidence. He has seen the blonde Jedi in action on Corellia, and had studied some of his past exploits. If there was one thing he knew, it was that Uzumaki wasn't captured. He had faith in his commanding officer. Knowing General Uzumaki, he had foreseen this entire situation, and would probably arrive with a cache of supplies, and a fresh legion of reinforcements any second now. With the 327th, Ayla couldn't stop worrying. She felt as if something bad was bound to happen today. She was in deep thought, meditating atop the 8 as the half of the corps she was directly commanding moved towards Deepa's last known location. After destroying the factories and the mining facilities, she had given her troops a day of rest before trying to get in contact with Deepa, only to find that the communications were being jammed and worse, the supplies had stopped coming. She took some solace seeing battle above was more or less won, as only a few holdout enemy frigates remained, at least from what she could see. The droid fleet had been broken 2 days ago, their command quickly shattered, and on the brink of total collapse. Yet, there was still something wrong about the whole battle. Could it be that thing? Ayla questioned herself. Just thinking about the monster she and the others fought made her shiver. Her fear overwhelming her Jedi training. She had tried to use the Force to defeat the cyborg, but found that her fear destroyed her concentration. It baffled her how the cyborg used fear to such a degree to prevent her and her fellow Jedi from using the Force, and his ruthless attacks did not help them. "General, we still can't get in contact with the 108th. Bly reported to her as Isla sighed. She had ordered Bly to try and make contact, but it had failed, again. "Then we have no choice but to head for the Separatist HQ. With any luck, we might find Master Balaba there," Isla ordered as Bly shook his head. "With all due respect, General, our supplies are stretched pretty thin as is. Not to mention all of our wounded that need medical treatment. An attack on the Separatist HQ would only lead to significantly more casualties." Bly reasoned as Isla sighed. "I understand, Commander, but we have no other choice. If Master Balaba is still there fighting the Separatists, then we might stand a chance of defeating the enemy." Isla countered as Bly sighed. Try as he may, he had no choice but to follow her command. Right away. Bly obeyed. While he had disagreed on many things with his commander, he was proven wrong many times about the situation and the outcome. He hoped that he would be wrong this time as well. Separatist headquarters. At the Separatist HQ, the same cyborg could be seen overseeing the battle. He studied the Jedi and their legion's movements with extreme depth. These kind of tactics were amateurish attempts to draw his forces out. "General, the Jedi are retreating once more," a droid reported as the cyborg kept looking at the holomap. "Fall back to our positions. We must keep the front lines as strong as possible and reinforce our defenses. To give chase would mean defeat," the cyborg ordered as the droid relayed the command to the others. He was no fool. Those brainless tactical droids would immediately give chase at the sight of a retreating enemy. They would only be cut down as they went further away from command. A small group of pursuing droids was easy picking for the Jedi and their clones, but a large group behind Durasteel walls was far more challenging. "General, we are receiving a priority transmission from Count Dooku," a droid reported as the cyborg grunted before turning around and walking up to a holoprojector before he activated it. The hologram of one Count Dooku appeared before the cyborg, who seemed a bit agitated. "General Grievous, I hope the battle is going well," Dooku questioned, hoping that the battle was at least going better than before. "The Republic's tactics have been quite predictable. However, with the loss of our fleet, the chance for permanent victory remains low," Grievous responded. Even they would run out of supplies, and with the planter shield destroyed, it was only a matter of time before the orbital bombardments followed. The only reason there weren't any was because Grievous was jamming all communications. "I am in agreement, General. Admiral Took will be returning soon to lift the blockade," Dooku commented as Grievous narrowed his eyes. Took had already failed to hold back the Republic, even when he outnumbered them. He scoffed at the notion that the disgraced admiral would be able to prevail against the Republic after suffering such a humiliating defeat, but he didn't say anything. He would let the green slime ball have another go at it. "Is there anything else you need of me?" Grievous questioned as the Count shook his head. At that, Grievous promptly cut the transmission. He had a battle to win. With the fleet, the battle above planet had come to an end as the droid fleet either retreat or was utterly destroyed. Currently, all of the admirals and captains were on board Allander's flagship, getting chewed out. "Tarkin, you not only became overconfident, you even sent a Venator to his death. Not only did we lose a valuable ship, you also managed to fall into a trap by pushing too far in." Allander yelled at Tarkin, who only flinched slightly. The old man was quite tall and had an imposing figure, and the scars on his face certainly didn't help. Allander then turned his sight to the next captain. "I can understand Tarkin disobeying orders, but you, Captain?" Allander questioned Jess, who looked at him with determination. "With all due respect, Vice Admiral, your traditional tactics weren't going to win us the battle. I had to do something, and I accept full responsibility for my actions," Jess replied as Allander sighed. One captain didn't care, the other was willing to accept all responsibility for her actions, and the Admiral was total ass. It was like dealing with children. Speaking of the Admiral, Weil noticed a slight smirk on Ross's face with Jess's last comment. He immediately marched towards him. It was his turn to be chewed out. "And you? Do not think that just because you got lucky you can get away with disobeying orders. I explicitly ordered you to save Tarkin and fall back. Nothing more. Not push past the enemy fleet. Because of you, we took far more casualties as the droid fighters swarmed out started to attack our center from the vacant space your fleet left behind." Allander shouted at Ross, who hated to admit that he was right. While he had calculated everything in front of him, Ross had failed to consider their center line would be exposed. This gave the New Providence-class cruisers the perfect opening to inflict heavy damage onto Allander's fleet. 2 Star Destroyers were heavily damaged, and one had its hangar blasted wide open. They would both need extensive repairs. Allander could only thank the Force that Martuk didn't notice the opportunity, otherwise the entire battle would have been lost. "I suggest you hold your tongue, Vice Admiral Allander." Ross put a stinging emphasis on his superior rank. "Even if I'm not in General Uzumaki's good graces, your tone is bordering on insubordination. I am your superior, like it or not." Weil was fuming. He was about to open his mouth when the ship sensor officer interrupted him. Sir, we have incoming ships jumping out of hyperspace. The officer reported as Allender turned his attention to the viewport. We will discuss this later, Ross. He commented as he ordered the batteries to ready. 4 ships jumped out of hyperspace, and they were Republic. Ross immediately recognized the lead ship due to its custom orange painted hangar. He quickly ordered all forces to stand down, as the single Venator, which seemed damaged, hailed them. Open communications channel 3. Allender ordered as a hologram of Naruto appeared. He wasn't in the best condition. General. Allender questioned in confusion. What was Naruto doing here? While, Ross. Battle formations. We have to ready ourselves. Naruto rushed out his words. The others raised an eyebrow at that. Or in Jess's case, fruitlessly trying to raise only one eyebrow, but raising both every time. For what? We have the situation under control. Ross questioned. Allender was curious too. The Separatist fleet was shattered the day was theirs, but alas they had failed to factor in one thing. The Separatists arrived in droves about 2 days ago. We were overwhelmed. My forces at Devon were defeated and I was forced to retreat. I managed to link up with a small Republic outpost before bringing what arms and ammo I could gather there. Our supply lines are now under Separatist control, and now that we're alone I am sure that they are right behind me. Naruto explained as Allender cursed under his breath. The enemy's determination to keep Destined had not been factored in. A few of their star destroyers were a liability at this point, and the Separatists most likely mustered another fleet of similar size to the one before. These are no pirates. Ross reminded himself. This was the difference between pirates and the proper military. Pirates were easy to break and defeat, and they would leave everything behind if it meant avoiding capture. A proper military, however, could take a defeat and still come back with sufficient numbers to achieve a victory. Then we need to act fast. We have all lost communication with our ground forces, but they surely need all the help they can get. Allender stated as Naruto agreed with the aged admiral. Do you know who was commanding the Separatist fleet? Ross suddenly questioned as Naruto frowned. At first I had no clue, but the battle quickly took a turn for the worse, and the enemy admiral offered me a chance to surrender to him. Naruto started, his thoughts going back to the battle he had managed to escape from. Devon, 2 days ago. Naruto stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out towards the vast expanse of space. It seemed endless, and it made him feel insignificant as he was but immortal. His thoughts slowly drifted to his childhood. He had come a long way from the scrawny little kid who everyone hated. He was now a leader, a Jedi, a warrior who fought for justice and peace. Yet, it seemed like he had failed to keep the peace with the war being sufficient enough evidence against him. What if things were different, he thought to himself, wondering if he would have been able to stop the war before it had begun. Wondering what his life would have been like if Master Yoda never found him. He's probably be at least a Jonin by now, leading his own team. Sir? He was broken out of his thoughts by King, who had a datapad in his hands. Shaking his hand, he smiled. Anything? Naruto questioned King, who shook his head. Nothing, our scans haven't found any droid warships in the vicinity. King reported as Naruto hummed. Odd, a few days ago he had been engaging pretty regularly with some droid trading groups trying to keep supplies from passing to Destined. However, the raids had ceased yesterday, but he hadn't heard anything from High Command, reporting the surrender of Destined. Something was not right. I want our turbolaser batteries primed and our shields up. Tell the fleet to be at battle ready. Naruto ordered an officer to the side, who saluted him before heading back to his post. Naruto turned his attention back to the space before him with narrowed eyes. The Separatists were getting ready for something big, and he feared that his small fleet of 3 Venators would not withstand what was to come. Separatist ships jumping out of hyperspace. An officer shouted out from his position as multiple Separatist vessels dropped out of hyperspace very close to his fleet. The Separatist fleet comprised of a single Lucrehulk, a dozen Banking Clan Munificent frigates, a handful of Rikusen-class destroyers, and a group of new cruiser-class vessels that looked like Core in design. Naruto scowled at the development. There was no way he was going to be able to take on a fleet of this size. Open fire immediately. Keep them at a distance while we bring our ships around. Naruto shouted while ordering a jump to the closest Republic outpost. However, as the ship started to turn, they jerked. We're caught in their tractor beams. The clone deck officer shouted as Naruto cursed his luck. The droids were combining their tractor beams to keep him in position. The batteries began to focus fire on the Munificent-class frigates, and had quickly torn one to ribbons. They were the easiest to destroy and thus would allow them to retreat. However, the Separatist admiral was no fool. In a shocking move, the Separatist fleet began pulling the 3 Venators away from each other, reducing their ability to concentrate firepower. Blast! Naruto shouted as he watched helplessly as his star destroyers were surrounded. His own flagship was under heavy fire. Get me in contact with Siri. Naruto shouted out. Her fleet of Frisia should be close enough to assist in time. However, the officer shook his head. No you sir. They're blocking our long-range communications. The officer replied as Naruto sighed. He needed to do something quickly. Procure. Mortuk observed the battle with the patience of a rock. Just yesterday, he had suffered a defeat at the hands of the Republic, losing control of the space around Destined. Today, he was about to make the Republic's victory moot. He would not give up such an important Separatist system so easily. He had quickly rallied his fleet once more, recalling the raiding fleets it had. This time, he was not going to simply overwhelm the Republic with superior numbers and tactics. He would break the backbone of the Republic, attacking the Republic fleet stationed at Devon, followed by an attack on the supply outpost at the Colada system. These attacks would cut the Republic supply line along the Corellian spine, and give the Confederacy opportunities to intercept their communications, thus allowing him to eliminate the Republic forces on Destined, given the fact that they would be isolated. Get me in contact with Uzumaki's ship. Dooku ordered. He had quickly identified Naruto's flagship and had isolated it. He wanted to meet the young Jedi Knight himself. Fire Shadow. Sir, the droid command ship is hailing us. The clone reported as Naruto frowned. What did the enemy want from him? Patch it though. Naruto responded as the communications officer nodded before he pressed a few buttons on the large circular table, before the hologram of Martuk appeared. So you are the Jedi Knight, Naruto Uzumaki. Mars started as Naruto narrowed his eyes. What of it? Naruto questioned as he hand-signaled to his comrades to scramble all bombers. You presented a unique challenge to me. I have read up on everything about you. From your participation in the Mandalorian Civil War to the overthrow of Pantor Parliament. Not to mention your contributions during the first battle of the war. Mars stated as Naruto raised his eyebrow. The Separatist admiral seemed to know quite a bit about him. But who are you? Naruto questioned, trying to keep the conversation going on as long as possible to give his forces a chance to counterattack. My name is Martuk, Admiral of the Separatist Alliance. Mar introduced himself with a slight smirk as Naruto raised an eyebrow. Weren't you supposed to be defending Destined? Naruto questioned as Mar frowned at that, controlling his anger. I was, but your subordinates live up to your renown. However, I shall deal with them once I have dealt with you. This is your only chance to surrender, General Uzumaki. Mar stated as Naruto smirked slightly. Yeah, that's not happening. Release torpedoes. Naruto ordered as bombers suddenly blitzed out of the hangar, now that the new Separatist cruisers were close enough, unleashing a barrage of proton torpedoes. One of them was destroyed outright, but most of them were only slightly damaged, but it was enough for the tractor beams to be disabled, breaking their hold on his star destroyers. Jump, now. Naruto shouted as the Venators quickly turned and made the jump to the outpost. As they did so, Naruto sighed. Martuk was no ordinary Separatist admiral. Sure, the man liked his monologues, but the strategy he described revolved around divide and conquer, rather than simply overwhelming him with his superior numbers. His tactics were well picked as the droid fleets naturally consisted mostly of frigates that were fast and well armed. He had to get to Destined as soon as possible to warn them of the incoming assault. Flashback end. Once I arrived at the outpost, most of the fleet was heavily damaged, even my flagship needed repairs. I went to the nearest Republic outpost and ordered the rest of my fleet to withdraw into Republic space. Naruto stated as the others grimaced at this new development. It seemed that Mar hadn't given up just yet. You shouldn't have withdrawn your fleet. Ross commented as Naruto resisted the urge to groan. And why shouldn't I have? Naruto questioned, though he knew he wasn't going to like the answer. Ross took a thinking stance at that, a strategy in his mind quickly formed up. We could have used your ships as decoys to lure part, or hopefully parts, of the Separatist fleet into a trap. That way, the enemy focuses on our weaker forces, while most of our strength remains intact. Ross answered. A damaged Venator would have presented a delightful target to the Separatists as they were expensive warships. It was one of the paths to victory was Ross, as it meant minimal losses to the main task force at the expense of a few ships and their crew. However, it was clear that Naruto did not like the idea that Ross put forth. I will not throw away lives just to win a battle needlessly. We will win this battle, with or without my fleet. Naruto reprimanded Ross, who could care less about Naruto's lectures regarding morality. Naruto sighed at his admiral's reaction. In any case, I have brought all the supplies I could, along with Masters Mundi and Shakti, who thankfully happened to be there. We also managed to rally a clone legion from Master Mundi's 21st Nova Corps. Destined must fall today, or we have to retreat. Naruto stated. This was it, do or die. There would be no reinforcements, no supplies, nothing. Either they took Destined right here and now or they pack and withdraw in a humiliating defeat. We'll take care of the Separatist fleet, General. Allender stated, confident that they would hold. They defeated Martuk once, they would do it again. Naruto nodded as he cut the transmission. He had to make his way down to the planet to reinforce the ground forces. I'm glad you aren't in charge of ground operations. Jess commented, pointing at Ross, who narrowed his eyes. And what's that supposed to mean? Ross questioned, leveling a glare at Jess, who sent her own glare at the man. If you were in charge, there would be massive casualties. Jess responded, not backing down. Tarkin and Allender simply watched the standoff, though Allender thought that she was right, while Tarkin mentally rolled his eyes. This woman, practically still a child by his standards, didn't know the importance of victory. If I was in charge, this battle would have been won weeks ago. My strategies and tactics are based on logic, experience, intelligence, and quickest route to victory. Ross stated as Jess scoffed. Sometimes the quickest way path to victory isn't always the best. Remember this, for everything gained, there is something lost. If you were in charge, we would be seeing mutinies left and right. Why the general keeps you around is beyond me. Jess finished as she left the bridge, heading back to her flagship. She understood that they were in a war and that they would lose troops, but that did not mean she was willing to send him to their death for a victory like Ross would. She's a fool to believe that. Tarkin commented as he too began to leave, followed by Ross, who wasn't pleased by the conversation he just had. What does she know about war? She had a simple and undemanding life at Coruscant in charge of a small ship. Ross had been fighting pirates for a very long time. These youngsters will be the death of me, Allender said with a sigh. Truly, he was almost dealing with children, not military officers. Shaking his head, he turned to one of the officers. I want our scanners set to full power. Have our defense line disperse. With any luck, we can lure the enemy ships into the gaps and wipe them out. Allender ordered as the officer nodded before he headed to his stations. Allender turned his attention to the bridge. He knew that the odds of that strategy working were quite low as it was similar to Tuk's. With Naruto. Naruto observed the battle below him and frowned. Deepa's forces had tried and gained little successes at taking the HQ. He couldn't blame her as the Separatists had really built their HQ in a favorable condition. Now it was up to him to aid her at taking the HQ. So, what's the plan? Mundi questioned as he looked at the holographic layout of the battlefield and the HQ in the middle. Around the table were Shakti and King, both thinking of ways to aid their fellow Jedis and clones. Sending our forces down to Deepa's location wouldn't help as they are already bogged down by the droid defenses. Shakti commented as everyone nodded. The LZ would have been a killing zone should they tried that approach. What about the rear? King pointed out towards the steep rocky path on the other side. Mundi shook his head. Traversing that terrain on foot will take too long. We can't land close enough. On that terrain and with those anti-air emplacements, we would be shot down before the second gunship deployed its troops. Deepa's forces are already stretched to their breaking point. We need to act fast. Mundi stated. They needed to attack, and they needed to attack fast. Shakti noticed that Naruto was quiet as he looked at the map. What do you think we should do, Naruto? Shakti questioned as Naruto hummed before he pressed a few buttons. We have jetpacks, right? Naruto questioned King, who looked confused by that question. Yes. I do believe we have a few. King answered as Naruto nodded. Good. Then gather your best men and have them suit up. Naruto ordered as King got even more confused. Just what was Naruto thinking? Sir, what is the plan? King questioned Naruto. Why did he want jetpacks to be issued out? It didn't make any sense. I know this might sound crazy, Naruto started as he positioned the holographic image of his Venator above the HQ. But, what if we pair drop from above the HQ? Naruto questioned as the others were bewildered by the suggestion. Well, it certainly would be the fastest method, Mundi stated. And the enemy HQ is undefended from above, Shakti added as she smiled. Naruto truly was unpredictable. And we can use some of the lardis we got to provide support. King commented as Naruto nodded. Yeah, sounds good. Have the crews prep their gunships. King saluted him and left to follow his orders. Naruto continued the rest of the plan. The initial phase calls for pair dropping onto the HQ and shutting down any anti-air systems for the gunships to provide us with more manpower. That will in turn cause chaos at the HQ, chaos we can use to land troops around the HQ at close proximity and even behind their lines. This way we can quickly relieve Master Deepa's forces. Naruto finished explaining his plan as everyone nodded. Then it is settled. Mundi questioned as everyone nodded. King quickly left to gather some of the best troopers they had and headed down the lower hangar of the Venator. Naruto, Mundi and Shakti headed to the large hangar where the gunships were located. With King had gathered an entire battalion of clones, each were the best that he could find. They had been equipped with jetpacks that would facilitate with their assault on the enemy HQ. Wonder why the commander called us here. One of the clones questioned his brother, who shrugged. They were simply told to gather their gear, along with the jetpacks, and assemble in the lower hangar. Listen up. As you know, our brothers below on the planet are being fighting for days and are low on supplies of every kind. We are to aid them by assaulting the enemy HQ. King announced as everyone looked confused at that. If they were gonna assault the HQ, then didn't they need gunships? King saw their confusion before he chuckled slightly. This was gonna be interesting. Our job is to attack the enemy HQ from above. King stated as the hangar opened up behind him as the clones looked at him as if he had gone mad. That is suicide, one of the clone captains muttered. Whose genius plan was this? Another shouted out in either fear or excitement. King couldn't tell. However, King quickly explained them that the jetpacks would help them land safely. He then explained their objectives. Take the roof of the HQ, shut down all AA emplacements, and cause havoc among the droid forces. Any questions? King questioned the clones. All of them raised their hands before King smirked before he turned and walked up to the edge of the hangar. Good, now go, he ordered as he leapt off the edge as the clones looked in disbelief before they all quickly ran off the hangar's edge. Yeah, they definitely signed up for this. But then King remembered they didn't sign up for anything, they were clones bred for the sole purpose of war. Separatists HQ. The Separatists were still holding out well, resisting all of Deepa's assaults. These attacks had gained some land, but at the cost of heavy losses. Grievous, however, was getting annoyed. A few hours ago, the Count had contacted him again, and had ordered him to withdraw from the planet. Apparently, the plan had changed. Martuk was ordered to open up a path for the retreating Separatists' forces from destined, as Grievous was a valuable asset. They could not allow him to fall or be captured by the reinforcements. Ready the transports, Grievous ordered as he turned to leave. Best to get out while he still could, as he had spotted several clone jet troopers approaching the HQ from above. His anti-air wasn't suited for small fast-moving targets like that, and he had no doubt that those clones would throw open the front gates. Destined had been lost. He had failed. But how, exactly, did Dooku predict this outcome? With Deepa. Deepa felt a tremendous weight lift from her shoulders after she saw a Star Destroyer positioning itself over the Separatist HQ, and from the odd-colored markings she knew who that Venator belonged to. Looks like Naruto is here, General Crook stated before he turned to Deepa, who nodded in confirmation. Dragon almost lit up when he realized one of the greatest heroes of the Republic had arrived. This is our chance. With Naruto here, we can turn the tide of this battle. Charge, Deepa shouted, her saber in hand as she and the clones vaulted over their cover, charging straight into the confused droids. With Isla. Is that General Uzumaki's flagship? Bly questioned as they neared the battlefield. Isla looked up and smiled. Yes. We must move quickly. Knowing him, he's probably got an insane plan. She responded as Bly nodded before ordering the men to double time it. The 8 quickened its pace as the clones started to sprint to the battlefield. They could hear the sound of blaster fire getting closer and closer. It took them a good 10 minutes, but they finally reached Deepa's rear guard. Isla quickly leaped off the 8 and joined the clones. Commander, issue out medical supplies to the wounded here. Once you're done, head up to the front lines, she ordered Bly, who nodded. Their medical supplies were almost depleted, but they would have enough to prevent the wounded from dying. With that, Isla quickly ran off towards the front lines, passing by some clones along the way. It wasn't long before she reached the fighting. Activating her saber, she charged right into a line of droids as the clones fought on her flank. About time, Deepa commented as she cut another droid down before using the force and pushing back a dozen of them into one another. Sorry, but we didn't know your status or current position. We had to use our eyes, Isla responded as she deflected some blaster fire before cutting into a squad of super battle droids. The two kept on fighting and pushing as Republic gunships began to swarm and land clones behind the droid lines. Is that Naruto? Deepa questioned as she spotted a mop of blonde hair charge out of one of the gunships. She also spotted Master Mundi and Shakti as well. So it would seem, Isla answered as she focused on pushing through the droid forces. Isla didn't know how many droids she had cut down in her advance, but apparently it was enough to reach Naruto and his group. You were late. Isla briefly gestured towards Naruto with her saber, as she quickly turned around to deflect blaster fire back at 2 B2s that had gotten uncomfortably close, as Naruto too was forced to turn around to deflect fire from some Dradikas. The two were now practically fighting back to back. Yeah, well, I try, Naruto responded as he used the force and pulled the Dradikas towards him at great speed, as he and Isla ducked, causing the Dradikas to smash into the line of droids that were firing at Isla. Thanks for that, she thanked him as Naruto chuckled. You can thank me later by letting me buy you a drink once we get back to the temple, Naruto said as Isla giggled at that. He was different than most Jedi. Not too uptight, nor was he too lazy. He was a balance, a mix of both, she suppose. Then we best finish up this battle quickly, Isla stated as Naruto nodded, the two focusing the battle at hand once more. The droids still had a slight numbers advantage, but thanks to air support and reinforcements, it would soon erode away, as more and more clones were being dropped off by the gunships, as the wounded were taking back to the Venator. With even Peel, Master Peel had tasked himself with stopping the retreat of any and all Separatist convoys, who, from what he could gather, were retreating with Confederate officials, and whatever supplies and valuable raw materials they could get their hands on. The Jedi Master frowned at that. It wasn't enough that the Republic would have to crack down on the planet, but the Separatist looting. That was a whole new low. Well, that's another convoy down, Jedi Knight Tarsair commented as he wiped away the non-existent dust of his hands. A few hours ago, they had ambushed one of the Separatist convoys carrying some non-essential personnel of the Separatist Alliance, mostly low-ranking officers. They had managed to halt the nearly every convoy and secured the valuables up from them, along with taking whatever prisoners they could. They might not know much, but they might know some information regarding Separatist positions in nearby systems, and enough of them might at least make a decent trade for any Republic POWs. You shouldn't take this so lightly, Master Dockman Barrack stated as he walked up to the Jedi Knight, his Padawan Shagai following right behind him. The three were Jedi generals of the 99th Corps, aiding Master Peel in his task of ensuring that the Separatists didn't make it off planet. "Sir, the scouts just spotted another convoy. It's the biggest one yet." Nickname reported to Peel, who called back in acknowledgement. "Good, get us the coordinates and a projection of its path as soon as possible. Let's get moving." Now that Naruto is here, they're probably going to be in a rush to evacuate. Peel ordered as he, along with the three Jedi and the clones, started to move out, intent on stopping the convoy. The scouts were quick to send the coordinates, and they quickly arrived at a new position, right in the convoy's path. I spot at least a dozen odd ones, and a lot of cis transports. Commander Nickname called out the targets. Peel hummed as he looked at the advancing convoy, which was traveling in a shallow ravine to try and avoid detection. This was probably an important shipment. Nickname, take your men and ready an ambush along each side of the path. The rocky formation should provide enough cover and concealment for your men. Deal with the odds first. We'll deal with the close quarters. Peel ordered as Nickname nodded. They only had a regiment worth of clones, as the Legion was divided up into hunting down other convoys. They quickly assumed their positions, waiting for their general's signal. "We should attack now." Shaw Guy was itching for a fight, but Master Barrack shook his head at that. "Patience, young Padawan. We attack when Master Peel says so. Trust in his wisdom." Barrack said as Shaw nodded. He just wanted this battle to be over and done with. Peel watched as the tanks were just past the hidden clones. "Fire." Peel ordered as the clones opened fire, destroying several tanks in the surprise attack. This brought the convoy to a halt, as the Rectots blocked their path. Then the clones began to attack the rear and block the Separatist convoy's path of escape. There was no escape now. "Forward." Peel shouted as he charged forward, the other following right next to him as they divided into the droids. However, as Peel and his forces fought on, he noticed that they were losing troops fast. How was that possible? That's when he heard that same mechanical laugh that haunted him a few days ago. No, Peel gulped as he turned to see the same cyborg, walking towards him with two lightsabers activated. "We meet again, Jedi. I'm glad to see you brought me more game to hunt," Grievous said with laughter as he. Peel immediately reached for his belt and activated his distress beacon. This cyborg was capable of going toe-to-toe with three experienced Jedi Masters. He would need all the backup he could for this. Stealing himself, Peel and Barrack charged at Grievous, intent on striking down the dangerous enemy. Back with Naruto. The Separatist HQ had all but fallen to the Republic forces, as all that remained was clearing up the last of the droid forces that had hunkered down at the command center within the HQ. After they had secured the area around the HQ, they began to push into the HQ itself. While they worked their way up, King and his group pushed from the top down. "Go! Go!" Naruto shouted as he and Captain Heavy covered the charge into the heavily defended command center. The turrets above were raining down hellfire, making it difficult for more troops to enter. That was when Heavy was suddenly scooped up by a clone jet trooper. "Whoa! What the hell? What are you doing, you lunatic?" Heavy screamed out. Despite his size, he wasn't exactly a fan of heights. "What am I doing?" "More like what aren't you doing, moron? Open fire on those turrets and get ready for a wild ride." The 11th Company Captain, CT-3330, shouted back. Heavy could only smirk as he lifted his minigun and riddled the turret emplacements with a barrage of blaster bolts. 3330 circled quickly round the building, giving Heavy the opportunity to destroy all of the turrets before they could even be lifted up to fire back. Naruto took advantage of the opportunity, and the rest of the Legion to make their way inside. With the command center under their control, the Republic gave out the shutdown signal to all droids on planet. That should take care of them. Mindy commented as he stared out at the battlefield below. Seems like the Separatists had quite the visual advantage during the battlefield. Deepa, however, did not seem pleased. "Something is wrong. Before you came, the droids were performing better. Their strategies and tactics were strong. However, they just fell apart after you arrived." She voiced her concerns as Naruto frowned. "Do you think it was the work of that cyborg you guys were talking about?" Naruto questioned Ayla and Deepa. The two shared and looked before nodding. "It's possible. He was pretty skilled and managed to hold back Deepa and I, along with Master Peel all at once." Ayla answered as Naruto hummed. This was disturbing news. For someone to stand up against three Jedi Masters and win was unheard of in a very long time. "I'm sure we will find a way to deal with it when we report our findings." Shakti spoke up as the rest nodded. For now, there was still much to do as Master Peel had yet to contact them. "Sir, the Separatists are still jamming our communications. I can get the jamming signal down, but it'll take some time," King informed Naruto, who nodded in turn. If there was one place the Separatist jamming signal was coming from, it was the HQ they had just captured. "So, what happened to you?" Ayla questioned Naruto, who sighed. He began to explain his defeat at the hands of Martuk and his retreat. The more he explained to them the situation, the more they realized how critical it was for them to take Destined today at all cost. The fact that the Separatists were gathering a large force to retake the space around the planet proved how valuable the system was. However, as they talked amongst one another, a beeping sound started to go off on Deepa's and Ayla's communicators. They quickly checked to see that it was a distress beacon from Master Peel. This can't be good, Isla said. The distress beacon had been active for quite a while, but the jamming signal had prevented it from being heard. All they had were some coordinates. Isla, Kruk, I'll need you to come with me to aid Master Peel. Deepa, you and your forces deal with the Separatist military personals and the securing this area. Naruto ordered. Hold on, we're coming too. Shakti called out. Naruto turned back to see her and Master Mundi following him. He nodded in agreement and rushed off in a chakra-enhanced sprint to prep the gunship. Time was of the essence. In orbit. Sir, we have enemy ships jumping out of hyperspace. An officer shouted to Ross, who hummed, wanting to see just what the enemy brought, and they brought a pretty decent-sized fleet. They had almost 3 dozen frigates and destroyers, a few of those newer ships, and at the center of it all was Martuk's Lucrehulk flagship. Divert power from the engines to the forward shield. Have all non-essential power diverted to the batteries. Ross ordered. It was best to keep the enemy at range, as the Separatist ships up close would overwhelm them. He noticed that Allender had deployed his fighters, but was holding his bombers in reserves, waiting for the enemy to come a bit closer. Tarkin was adopting a more defensive approach than anyone else, considering his failure in the first battle. Jess, however, was on the far end of the right flank, her fleet in position to strike the Separatist fleet from the rear, should they advance too far in. Everything's set, Ross muttered. Allender's loose formation was a ruse to pull the enemy in, as to destroy them, and with him keeping them at bay with long-range fire, the Separatists would be having a hard time retaking this planet today. With Martuk wasn't in a good mood. He had initially set out to retake the space around Destined, and had gone to great lengths to pool all of his resources into forming a formidable fleet. However, that was not to be. The Count had ordered him to change his objective. Rather than retake the space around Destined, he was ordered to make a path for the retreat Separatist forces from the planet below. Now, it was still a battle, but it meant that he would have to withdraw once his objective was completed. He would not get the satisfaction in defeating the enemy. Have the fleet assume wedge formation. I want a Providence cruiser for every 6 frigates. Have all Rakusan destroyers assume position on our flanks. Martuk ordered. Currently, the Republic forces were more or less in a loose line formation in front of him. He chuckled at that. They were trying to mimic his strategy, but in the end actually helped his plans. Their loose formation should be easy enough for the wedge to break through. Mar said to himself as he stroked his chin. He had 4 frigates on standby in a nearby system. This time he would not let the enemy get to his rearguard. All ships are in position, sir. A battle droid reported as Mar smirked. Full speed ahead, break the Republic's line. He ordered as his fleet began to move. He had withheld most of his fighter and bomber units, a trick he learned from the Republic during the first battle. This time he would not fail. With Naruto, the group quickly made it to Master Peel's position, and what they found was a scene of carnage. It seemed like the entire clone regiment that went with Peel was dead, save for Nickname, who was barely alive. The 4 Jedi quickly pushed past the rubble and carnage, as they heard the sound of lightsabers clashing. Arriving, they were horrified to find Master Peel on the ground, clinging on to his life with a saber wound to his side. They turned to face the saber duel between the cyborg and Tarsair, who was losing badly against the mechanical creature. Master Barak had been bisected, and his apprentice Shaw Guy had lost his entire arm. He didn't even cut the arm. Isla thought in shock. Shaw Guy's arm wasn't cut by a lightsaber, no, it was torn off. The Padawan was most likely dead, judging by the sheer amount of blood pooled around him. Come on. Naruto shouted, his saber in his hand as the 5 Jedi charged at Grievous, intent of bringing the beast down. Seeing the new threats, Grievous quickly used his clawed feet and grabbed Tar's face, before brutally crushing it into the ground. He then threw the corpse at Kruk, knocking the Jedi back into some rubble as Naruto, Mundi, Isla and Shakti engaged Grievous, who laughed as he blocked all their strikes. Grievous dodged a strike aimed for his hand by Isla, and quickly pushed the opening to kick her back into the same pile of rubble, just in time as Kruk charged in, taking Isla's place. What pile of scrap did Dooku pull you out of? Naruto questioned as he kept up his strikes against the cyborg, but the said creature was easily able to withstand them all. Grievous turned his attention to Naruto, finding the translucent blade he possessed to be quite interesting. Your lightsaber will make a wonderful addition to my collection. Grievous proclaimed as he pressed the offensive, easily starting to push the Jedi's back. This is insane. His strikes are coming in too fast and that power. Mundi thought as he tried to defend against the overwhelming power. Kruk was the first to make a mistake as he was unable to keep up against the onslaught, resulting in a saber strike right through his heart. The others' eyes whitened at that, but they weren't given a chance to even react, as Grievous grabbed the dying Jedi and threw him at Isla, who was just getting up. She was once again thrown back into rubble as she was bleeding from the head, and had contusions all along her arms and legs. She was alive and breathing, but badly wounded. I have to say, I am disappointed in you, Jedi. You call yourselves masters, but you can't even beat one man. Grievous said with a chuckle. If this was as strong as Jedi got, then it would be easy killing them all. The remaining 3 Jedi narrowed their eyes as Grievous spun his 4 lightsabers at great speed. Naruto quickly reached his hand out, intent on using the force to defeat this enemy, but Grievous quickly leapt at him, not even giving him a chance. Naruto once again found himself on the defensive as he was barely able to deflect all the strikes. Shakti and Mundi tried to help him, but Grievous started to use his one hand to duel Mundi, while he used two to keep the onslaught on against Naruto. He used his third hand to quickly disarm Shakti, who was surprised at how helpless they were against the cyborg. He then quickly grabbed her and threw her towards one of the destroyed transports. Shakti collided with the transport head first, quickly getting a concussion from the impact, before Grievous threw a thermal detonator at the transport. The detonator exploded, and the resulting debris fell onto Shakti, knocking her out. Ayla tried to get back up to aid Mundi and Naruto, but it was impossible. Her legs refused to work. The fear of facing the cyborg again was just too much. The bleeding from her head didn't help either. As she forced herself to stand, her vision blurred and she soon faded into unconsciousness. Damn it. Naruto grunted as he tried to find an opening, but he was having a hard time. Use my power, boy. Even you can tell you're no match for him. He heard Kurama call out to him. The Nine Tails hadn't spoken to him in a while, but that didn't matter right now. Like hell I'll resort to that. Now stop distracting me, you stupid fox. Naruto responded as he finally found an opening and quickly maneuvered and managed to cut one of Grievous's hands off. Grievous didn't like that one bit. He grabbed Mundi by the wrist and threw him aside, focusing all of his attention of Naruto. Grievous' attack became too vicious as Naruto's saber was knocked out of his hand and cut in half, thanks to Grievous. Grievous paused for a second. He really wanted that for his collection. However, in his moment of lament, Naruto took the opportunity and focused some chakra in his left hand. That was a gift, you asshole. Naruto shouted as he laid into Grievous with a chakra-enhanced punch. His fist landed right on Grievous' chest armor, causing the cyborg to be knocked onto the ground, a fresh dent in his exoskeletal armor. Naruto, however, felt the pain of 3 freshly broken fingers. Ha 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 ha. Nice plan, you fool. The Kyuubi mocked as Naruto grit his teeth to take his mind off the pain. That armor was strong, very strong. A chakra-infused fist was only able to put a small dent, but then again, he wasn't exactly an expert at it. Grievous slipped back to his feet, the claws tearing deep into Naruto's chest. He screamed in pain as blood began pouring heavily from the wounds. Grievous went on attack again with his 3 arms. Naruto reflexively dodged the first 2 saber strikes, and the third was blocked just in time by intensely scowling Coyote Mundi. Grievous turned his full attention onto the remaining threat. Thinking quickly, he spotted Ayla's lightsaber and pulled it towards him. She wouldn't be needing it anytime soon. He activated the blue blade and surprised Grievous with another literal disarming. Grievous snarled and pushed Naruto as hard as he could into the rocky walls of the ravine, before putting some distance between the two of them. Suddenly, the transmitter on Grievous began to beep as Grievous groaned in annoyance before he turned and fled. Mundi was going to give chase but was stopped by Naruto. We must pursue. This is our chance to finish him off. Mundi shouted in anger, but Naruto shook his head, feeling a bit lightheaded due to what he could only assume was due to a major concussion, or blood loss. Shakti and Ayla need medical treatment quickly, and Master Peel needs it immediately. If we give chase now the others will die. Naruto reasoned with Mundi, who took a deep breath and calmed himself before he began to assess the situation. Naruto was right. They were in no position to give chase, and they had already lost 5 Jedi, losing more would be pointless and unnecessary. Above planet with Ross. What the hell? Ross thought as he was baffled by what was happening. He had thought that Martuk would use a standard approach, sending fighters and bombers, followed by frigates closing in with heavier ships in the rear, but no. Mar had attacked them using a wedge approach, dividing the Republic fleet into 2, creating an opening towards the planet for the Separatist forces. The loose formation Allender had set completely backfired, and Jess' counterattack had failed, as 4 frigates had jumped out of hyperspace to prevent her from attacking the rearguard. He waited to deploy his fighters and bombers the last second, and focused on the center. Ross thought as he gripped the datapad in his hand tightly. This is not how the battle was supposed to go. They were powered to the side deflectors. I want the point defense systems at full power. Make sure nothing gets through. Ross ordered as the officers did their job. However, this unexpected move from Mar was something he did not expect. Another difference between pirates and a competent military commander. Ross thought. Years of fighting pirates and bandits had formed a pattern in his head. How they moved, their attack strategies and tactics. He would have to adapt to each enemy individually it seemed. Sir, our sensors are picking up Separatist transports leaving the planet. One of the officers reported as Ross's eyes widened. So that's why he divided our fleet and created an opening, Ross muttered. Had they been aware that the Separatists would attempt to flee, they would have strengthened the center, but communications had been jammed for a very long time. All he could do now was to keep on hammering away at the Separatist fleet to create an opening. Martuk was smart in keeping his flagship towards the center rear. It gave him an overview of the battlefield around him, left, right and center. Martuk. Sir, our transports have started to make their way to us. A battle droid reported as Mar nodded to himself. Good, ensure that the Republic fleet does not break through our formation. Keep the two isolated, he ordered. He was taking a few losses, mostly frigates, but they would buy enough time for the retreating convoys and transport. Sir, we are receiving a message from General Grievous. Another battle droid reported as Mar ordered the message to be put through. A hologram of Grievous appeared before him, and he did not look too pleased. I see that you have managed to open up a path of retreat. Grievous commented as Mar raised an eyebrow. The cyborg seemed to dislike him, and he was also in bad condition. And I see that the Jedi were able to defeat you. Mar countered as Grievous snarled at the Admiral. Why the Dooku appointed you to lead the defense of Destined is beyond me. You are an incompetent fool who didn't press his advantage. Grievous stated as Mar frowned before he shut the transmission. He didn't fear Grievous as many would. What could the cyborg do to him? Mar was an accomplished admiral, well respected, and had much support within the Confederacy. Grievous couldn't do squat other than pass along his grievances to Dooku. Ready the hyperdrive, we have achieved our objective. Mar ordered, seeing the last of the transports finally land in the hangar of his flagship. Immediately, the Separatists' fleet broke of its attack and quickly jumped away, thus ending the battle. The battle was over, but it came at a heavy cost for the ground forces and the Jedi. 1 week later, with the capture of Destined, the Separatist alliance have lost a major strategic location in the Inner Rim, and the Republic had gained a valuable position to strike from towards the southern Outer Rim. A hologram of a news report from the Galactic Central News (GCN) reported as Naruto watched the news. According to CGN sources, the Republic's battle was hard-fought, with the Jedi Order leading the charge. The Republic's 10th Army prevailed in capturing the strategic location, however, many are criticizing whether it was even a victory. With so many Jedi losses, the question remains whether or not they are effective leaders in such a time of crisis. The news report continued as Naruto frowned. They had lost many Jedis during that battle, and some were put close to the doors of death, but they were able to save them. Sighing, he stood up and headed to the council chambers. They had called him for a full report. Jedi High Council Chamber, Coruscant. We may have been exhausted, but when was the last time someone stood up to 5 Jedi and held his own? Coyote Mundi began the council session by reporting on the tragic ending to the siege of Destined that cost the lives of 4 Jedi. Not to mention he had just been fighting against 4 others. And it's not like we were all just some younglings either. 6 masters, 2 knights and a Padawan, and he held us off like it was child's play. Naruto added, resisting the urge to itch at the bandages under his shirt. Master Sakura's recovery is estimated to take at least 2 weeks. Obi-Wan relayed the grim news. He had recently been appointed the council to replace the recently deceased Coleman Treber, which was unprecedented, considering he had only been a master for a few months. We should also consider the assassin that your Padawan faced. Plo Koon brought up the Dathomirian named Asajj Ventress, who recently just lost a duel with Anakin Skywalker, but only just. These new threats must be dealt with. Master Mundi proposed immediate action. I agree. This General Grievous, especially, has changed the shape of the war. Master Windu upheld the general consensus of the council. Our numbers were already dwindling before, but now with these new developments, Mundi trailed off. Yes, we need more knights. More generals. Adigalia voiced what all of the masters were thinking. A long pause followed this suggestion. The Jedi were peacekeepers, not soldiers. This war was causing tremendous amounts of strain on the Jedi. I know this will generate debate, but I suggest that in this time of war, we forego the trials and promote my Padawan, Anakin, to knighthood. Obi-Wan proposed. This is preposterous. We cannot set aside our most hallowed traditions for the sake of a war we did not begin. Oppo Rancisis, ever the sourpuss, pointed out. Nothing about this situation is traditional, Master Rancisis. The Jedi haven't been involved in a galactic conflict of this scale in over 1,000 years. Not since the days of Lord Hoth and the Ruusan Reformation. Naruto countered, mentioning his favorite historical Jedi. In this time of need, why do we hold back the Chosen One? Mundi nearly demanded an answer. Whether or not he is the Chosen One is still to be determined. Mace Windu briefly glanced at Naruto, who reeled at the suggestion. No. There was no way that he was the Chosen One. Anakin could wear that hat all day if he wanted, but Naruto wasn't about to be tied to some silly old prophecy. And Palpatine has been requesting this for months now. Even Peel, who had discharged himself from the hospital against the advice of the medical droid, interjected. Politicians have no voice in Jedi matters. Master Windu shut down this argument swiftly. Aside from Old Man Rancisis, Mace was likely the one who least thought that Skywalker was ready to become a knight. Well, he is a cunning warrior and our best pilot. Kid Fisto raised a different point. Naruto noticed CC Tien and his former master Plo Koon share a brief dejected glance with one another, but they also silently agreed. They were good, but it went without question that Skywalker was much better than them. He was probably one of the best starfighter pilots in the galaxy, but is reckless with these gifts. Master Gallia pointed out Skywalker's daring tendencies to rush headstrong into battle. Sometimes in the past, yes. Obi-Wan interrupted. But regardless, Anakin has been through things more difficult than the trials. Surely he passed a trial of skill when he defeated that Sith assassin on the 4th moon of Yavin, and he endured an atrocious trial of the flesh at the hands of Count Dooku, and he's continued to pass every test of courage this war has dealt him. Master Yoda hummed at that. This wasn't a matter that could be decided by simple reasoning. The Grand Master started reaching out to the living force for guidance. It would seem he would have but one trial left to face. Master Koth agreed with Obi-Wan's assessment. Testing the spirit, announced Shakti, who had also disobeyed the medical droid's wishes in order to attend the meeting. Facing the mirror, Master Peel was uneasy by the suggestion of such an important trial being waylaid. And that is precisely what concerns me. To walk the path of the Jedi, one must possess a strong spirit, and that requires discipline. And he has often disobeyed you. Has he not, Master Kenobi? Rancisis elaborated his objections. Did you not disobey me, from time to time, in your youth, Master Rancisis? Yoda finally broke his silence. I know I'm not on this council, but I fought alongside Anakin on Tina a few weeks ago. In my opinion, he's definitely ready. Perhaps more ready than I was when I was promoted. A just debate, this is. But in these days of war, need all the knights we can. Unorthodox, young Skywalker's career has been. So too will be his trials. Trust in the Force, I do. A knight, he shall be. If this is settled, then I have another issue I believe we should discuss. Master Mundi spoke up before turning to Naruto. You are dismissed, Uzumaki, but please do not go too far. I have a feeling we will be calling you back in soon enough. Naruto nodded and began to head out of the room. What is this about, Master Mundi? Plo Koon started. Master Mundi just stared at the doors until they had closed, and he was sure Naruto had left. Even if we promote more knights, we did just lose 2 Jedi Masters, Master Mundi began, but was immediately interrupted. No, not this again. Master Tien groaned out. This is the 4th time since Geonosis that we've discussed this, and the answer has always been no. He's too young. He's not ready. If you had seen what we've witnessed, then you would agree with me, Master Tien. I now see what our fellow masters have been saying is true enough. Even though he was critically injured, he was still able to stand up to Grievous. Master Mundi had been impressed, nearly awed, by his performance. In terms of strength and skill, he has been every bit my equal, if not better, ever since he became a knight. He could probably best some of us here. Master Plo Koon had been one of his supporters from the start. There's been little question to his skills as a combatant. What ears me on the side of caution is the same issue as with Skywalker. He has grown tremendously as a knight, yes, but he is still much too reckless and emotional. Master Rancisis drew the parallel with Skywalker, but that inadvertently strengthened the opposition's case. Skills as a combatant have alone been enough to promote Jedi to the rank of Master. If they were sufficient enough to promote Skywalker, then they're sufficient to promote him. Was I not placed on this council mostly in part due to my martial skills? Master Peel reminded the rest of the council that he wasn't exactly a questions first sort of Jedi. What has convinced me to change my mind the most was what happened after Grievous left. In haste, I rushed to pursue him, but he ushered me back. I almost let anger and frustration get the better of me, and let Isla and the 2 of you die from your wounds. Mundi gestured towards Master Peel and Shakti. His head has cooled somewhat ever since he became a knight. I haven't noticed any of my robes dyed orange yet. Obi-Wan tried to make a joke, but Master Rancisis wasn't in a playful mood. Are we seriously considering promoting Naruto Uzumaki to the rank of Jedi Master? He was clearly not happy at the thought of such a maverick representing the Jedi Order's greatest and wisest. Jedi Temple Medical Bay. Naruto frowned as he watched the unconscious figure of Isla on the bed in the medical bay. She had suffered some cuts and bruises, but the worst was the head injury. She had fallen unconscious before Grievous had retreated, and they feared that she had internal bleeding. Thankfully, they managed to save her, and she would need some time to recover. I'm not strong enough even after everything I've been through as a Jedi, I'm still not strong enough. He thought as he balled his hands into fists. If he was only stronger he could have saved the others, he could have stopped that beast. He closed his eyes as his thoughts dwelled on his powers. He had both the Force and Chakra. While he had become very proficient in the Force, he still knew very little of Chakra. He could count on one finger the amount of techniques he knew regarding Chakra, and he hated it. He had power, but he didn't know how to use it. You can always use my power. You could have saved them. The fox spoke from within Naruto's side. No Kurama. For the last time, I'm getting stronger on my own. Even if I did use your power every now and again, I can't rely on it every time. Naruto responded, ending the discussion, leaving Kurama to his own thoughts. Could Naruto really be the one he spoke of so long ago? High Council Chamber. With all due respect, Naruto should be promoted to the rank of a master. Everyone calls him a master. We would only be making it official. Plo Koon stated as some of the Naruto supports nodded at that. Not to mention all the support he is getting from the media. Kid Fisto added in as Master Yoda raised an eyebrow. Support? Yoda questioned. This was the first he had heard of this. Windu frowned as he leaned back into his seat. This is absurd. First the Chancellor and now the media. Since when did public opinion determine who we deem worthy of being a Jedi Master? Master Tien had already made up his mind. It would be a warm day on Hoth before he agreed that Naruto Uzumaki was ready for the rank of master. It seems like Naruto has become something of a hero to many. Once word got out that he was leading the 10th army on destined, many began to flock towards him, offering him supplies, weapons, aid, and such. Most notably are volunteers from Naboo, Pantor, and even Mandalore. Windu explained as Yoda hummed. He didn't invest too much time into the affairs of the military, maybe he should begin doing that. Mandalorians in the Republic forces. I thought Duchess Satine had declared neutrality. Rancisis was taken aback by this revelation. Regardless, Mandalorian warriors were bad news to him. Had the Order forgotten that the Mandalorians once sacked Coruscant? Regardless, his ability to lead and inspire is something we cannot ignore. I am sure that in the near future his army will comprise of more and more irregular units as well. Shakti stated. There weren't exactly many opportunities for volunteers or within the military. Most positions went to clones or former servicemen. As such, Republic volunteers after Battle of Geonosis have been labeled irregulars. I understand why people from Naboo would be willing to fight for him, but Pantor and Mandalore? Obi-Wan questioned. He knew that Naruto and Plo Koon had chosen to take a more active role in the Mandalorian civil war than he and Qui-Gon, but he did not know to what extent. The Pantarans are willing to fight because he helped remove their corrupt government from power and save their world from falling into an oligarchy. Shakti explained. She was with him on that mission and knew all about it. And the Mandalorians see him as a hero because he was just a child when he fought in their civil war. Mandalore's culture had long revolved around their warriors. To see a child fighting alongside seasoned warriors garnered respect and admiration for him. Many still do not agree with the Duchess's pacifistic stance, and so I'm sure they're unconcerned about expatriation. Plo Koon explained as Kid Fisto nodded. Yoda looked around the room and found that many of them agreed. He closed his eyes and let the Force guide him. He remembered how he first found Naruto. The boy was an outcast, hated by and ignored by the village he lived in, yet he didn't snap. He still remained optimistic, holding out hope that people would come around if he just worked hard enough. Yoda did not believe that Naruto could fall to the dark side. The boy seemed incapable of it, even after having a beast of such malevolence sealed within him. But still, Naruto had only been a knight for not much more than 2 years. I think he should be promoted. He's ready for the rank. Obi-Wan threw his 2 cents in. Naruto had come a long way from that hot-headed boy he once knew. He was a Jedi general, a leader, a hero, and an inspiration to millions across the galaxy. He would make a fine Jedi master. Then everyone has made their decision. Windu questioned. To be honest, he wasn't in favor of promoting Naruto yet. He respected him as a Jedi, more so than Skywalker, but he was still too young. However, he could not ignore the boy's accomplishments, and he did have his suspicions that Naruto might be the chosen one instead of Anakin. It would have to be left up to the vote. Jedi Temple Halls. After visiting Isla, Naruto walked through the halls to the temple workshop. He needed to build a new lightsaber, after all. He wasn't looking forward to making a trip to Ilum to retrieve a new crystal, but he could at least construct the handle here. He grabbed the tools and parts he needed and got to work assembling the raw materials into parts that he would put together with the Force later. Naruto was ready to insert the D-Adium power cell, but when he reached for it, it was missing. He turned right to see if it fell on the floor, then behind him, then finally left. That's when he heard the sound of quiet, small footsteps. Naruto smiled and placed his hands on the workbench, feigning ignorance. Before suddenly turning around and grappling the offending youngling who screamed out before bursting into girlish giggles. "Naru, that tickles," Ahsoka said between fits of laughter. Naruto had lifted her into the air by the waist, and his hair was brushing against her neck and leku. "What was that?" "Tickle me more, Master Naruto." "Well, if you insist." But before he could continue, the Tigrita teen managed to wiggle her way out of his grip, catching her fall and getting to her feet. Ahsoka stuck her tongue out at the blonde Jedi Knight. "Jerk," she huffed. Rat Naruto fired back before embracing the young Tigrita in a hug. "Sorry I didn't tell you that I got back. I've been buried in paperwork and reports until now." He apologized, and the young Tigrita hugged him back tightly. "I haven't seen you in months. I didn't think you'd ever come back." Ahsoka whined. "The only reason I didn't think you were dead was because Siri was back here a few weeks ago, and she told me you weren't." "Well, I don't know how she knew that because I haven't spoken to Siri since Fonda a month ago," Naruto joked. Ahsoka punched him in the side as punishment. "The Force, dummy." Ahsoka tried to explain Siri's source of information, and Naruto only replied with an awe. Suddenly, he began beeping. "Ahsoka, I have to go. The council wants to see me." She didn't let go. She didn't want to let go. He might not come back for real this time. Naruto sighed, trying to think of a way to get the young Jedi to let him go. "Ahsoka, longer you hold on to me, the less time in the day we can spend together later." Ahsoka smiled at that. "Really? You mean it?" She beamed. The war had really reduced the time he spent in the temple. "Yes, I mean it. I'll be right back, and it should only take a few more minutes to finish up here. After that, we can spend the entire day together," Naruto assured her. She began jumping for joy and started running off to her room to prepare. He had to pull the power cell from her hand with the force because there was no stopping her otherwise. He set the power cell back onto the workbench and began to head toward the High Council chamber. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.